What do you get when you combine Double Dragon with Street Fighter 2 with, I don't know, Escape from New York maybe? You get Two Crude Dudes on Sega Genesis, which was actually called Two Crude, which was also known as Crude Buster, which was something. I guess what you need to know is in the arcade stateside this was called Two Crude, and the home port for Sega Genesis was called Two Crude Dudes. Because if you didn't have dudes in the title, your game wasn't cool. This was 1987 after all. This was developed by Data East and is considered to be a spiritual successor to their other Doodly related title, Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja, or if you played it on the NES, simply Bad Dudes. So you had Bad Dudes and Two Crude Dudes, oh yeah. And although at a glance this probably looks like a discount Streets of Rage, but really it's an enjoyable title in its own right. So the story here is in the all too distant year of 2010, a nuclear accident caused a series of explosions that totally decimated New York City. Over the course of the next 20 years, survivors tried to rebuild the city and get it started back up again, but also there was this totally not Dr. Wily dude who lured a bunch of survivors in and started doing genetic experiments. With his horde of mutants, he formed an evil organization called the Big Valley and took over New York City. So the authorities did the most logical thing, and rather than send in fleets of tanks, jet fighters, and ground troops, they sent in Biff and Spike. Two merciless mercenaries who have what it takes to get a dirty job like this done. That's why they call them Two Crude Dudes. So you'll battle through 5 stages of 16-bit beat-em-up action with all sorts of stuff out to kill you. Ninjas, these guys with flamethrowers, King Kong Bundys, mutant monsters, these tanks that look straight out of Metal Slug, and guard dogs with an uncontrollable hunger for nipples. Oh no, these dogs are eating my nipples! Oh no, you gotta help me! The controls are simple. You've got an attack button, which you can just mash to do a combination of punches and kicks. Then you've got a jump button. Simple enough. You can do all the basic stuff, punching, kicking, jump kick, crouch roll, and you can jump to climb up to ledges above. But one cool thing is there's another button which lets you reach out and grab the nearest object, and then you can just chuck it at your enemies. There's all sorts of random objects lying around that you can use for weapons. Bags full of garbage, street lights, traffic lights, cars. Heck, you can even pick up enemies and throw them at other enemies. If you're playing with 2 players, you can also pick up your teammate and chuck them at enemies as well. I realize picking up weapons like this is not exactly something new in the genre, but the sheer volume of random objects that can be used as weapons in this game is definitely more than I can remember seeing in any other game like this. Sometimes, too, you just have to reach up and grab one of the flying vehicles out of the sky and throw them down. Yeah, take that! Okay, so there is an arcade version as well as the Sega Genesis port, and honestly, I feel like there are pros and cons to both. So the arcade version looks a whole lot prettier, sure, that's an easy one, but the Genesis port isn't terrible. The oversized sprites are all still really colorful and detailed, and the animations are pretty dang good. My biggest complaint was just the backgrounds. Unlike the arcade version, which has a variety of colors and just cool stuff going on, the Sega Genesis backgrounds are all just a boring shade of yellow or beige, and considering a lot of the enemies are yellow too, everything just kind of blurs together. Musically, both versions are pretty good. The arcade version's obviously better, but I actually like the Genesis soundtrack too. Considering the usual Sega Genesis twang that you're usually in store for, this was a nice change with what seemed like some well-done uses of the extra audio channels. Here's where it gets tricky though. I actually felt like the controls were slightly better on the Genesis version. It just seemed a bit more tactile and all of the movements felt natural and smooth. I felt like it was a bit slower and more plodding on the arcade version, but maybe that was just me. I liked that in the arcade version it seemed like weapons could last longer and you could actually beat the enemies down with them, but on the home version you basically just pick up an item and then chuck it. Or maybe I was doing something wrong, I don't know. But one thing I didn't like in the home version was that in between each stage, there's a scene where you can beat the crap out of a soda machine for power-ups, but each time you reach down to pick up a soda, you have to actually physically drink it, which takes like 6 or 8 seconds, and then that only refills maybe a tiny bit of your energy. So there could be like 10 soda pops sitting there, but you could only actually drink like 2 or 3 of them before the time runs out. So that's kind of dumb. But another thing that was better about the home version was that I felt like the throwing feature was actually a lot better. It seemed like in the arcade version you had to be in just the right spot to be able to grab an enemy or pick up an object, whereas on the home version it was a lot more forgiving and basically just if you were in the general vicinity of a bad guy or an object, you could easily pick it up and throw it. The arcade version is definitely an arcade game in the sense that there are plenty of areas designed to gobble up your quarters, but that's to be expected with these things. Meanwhile, the Genesis port has this annoying thing where the enemies are flashing invincible after they take a hit. Your player has the same effect when he takes damage, but it's super annoying when it's the enemy because it robs you of the satisfaction of just going on an all-out button smash beatdown on somebody. And it's especially annoying too that sometimes you end up landing the kill shot while the enemy's off screen. I hate that. Those are all nitpicky complaints though. Honestly, this game is just simple beat-em-up fun. It's not gonna win any awards or probably even make it on any top 10 lists, but I've always wanted to beat an enemy to death with a traffic light, and this game makes that dream a reality for me. It's available on just about every modern platform these days as well, so if you want to give this one a try, I'm sure you can find it on your gaming platform of choice. If you are looking for a beat-em-up that's easy to pick up and play, and you just want to try something different from the usual stuff in the genre, give this one a look. As always, thank you for watching, please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.